What's up, folks? It is Wednesday evening here live on Talking Hoops. And of course, the entire crew is here. Coach Johnson, Coach Mac, the man, the myth, the legend himself. And no, not Mr. Preston at the moment, but he is. He is the living legend. But the other living legend, Ron Briscoe, is with us here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, also over on AMP Radio, of course, on Broad Street South.com and on YouTube. So if you are not subscribed yet to the YouTube page, please do so. Therefore, you won't miss another show. Two big announcements. One will be just a little bit later on this evening. Big one for the network, a big one overall as the network continues to grow. And then the other one that everyone's been patiently waiting for, and I did say it was going to come. So right now we have the call-in line is now available. So you can call the show live. And the number you see it up there on the screen, 727-858-6650. And if we are not on live at the moment, then you guys can call back, leave a voicemail, and it could be for Coach Mac, Coach Johnson, for Ron, even for our guest, for Coach Preston. So he'll come on with us here momentarily and just leave us your name, your voicemail. Let us know exactly the question you have. Therefore, we can get it answered for you. So that is a new feature that we have here on the show. And it is available tonight for the first time, and it will continue to be so. So every time you guys come back to watch the show, you'll be able to call in live. So if you have a little bit of stage fright, don't worry. No one will be able to see you, but they'll definitely be able to hear you. So with that being said as well, we want to bring on, we've already been having a great time with Coach Preston behind the scenes, but now with us live here from the BDS agency, Agents for Men's Basketball. It is Coach Preston. Coach, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Hey, thank you for having me, and I'm so excited to be here and catching up with all of you and talking hoops. Could do it all night.
That's okay. We can. We do have a coach, and you might have to hang around for this one, Coach, because we have a coach and coach unscripted with our two lady coaches, and that's always a fun segment as we get into WNBA. So you might want to hang around for that one. But listen, again, we talked a little bit behind the scenes. Right now with your coaching, and again, I will call you a legend because it is true. You know, winning back-to-back championships, which is winning one is hard. Winning back-to-back makes it even tougher. And you did it with Billy Donovan down there with the Florida Gators. I asked you before we came on, and I'm going to ask you again because it's one of those things that it's a part of your history, along with the other states, the other schools that you've been to as well. But coming into your coaching career, especially when you're looking at that championship season, what was it like after, that final buzzard sound, before we even get to the second one, that first championship ring?
Well, just for the historical fact, I was there for the second one. I replaced Anthony Grant, who actually left and went and became the head coach at Virginia Commonwealth at that point in time. So I was not there for the first one. But I remember getting hired, and to give you some historical reference to it, we had 3 lottery picks that came back to college. Joakim Noah, Al Horford, Corey Brewer, all came back to college. And at that point in time, it had been unheard of. In fact, they left just under about $40 million on the table to come back to college to go after that second championship. So at that point in time, it had been unheard of. And one of the things I remember, fast forward, to April 2nd, when the buzzer sounded, was, Al Horford, celebrating and everything. And the thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that through all the adversity, all the triumph, that they stayed the course and were able to repeat and do something that hadn't been done since the 91-92 Duke team. That was Christian Laettner and Grant Hill players back in that day.
As far as his NBA career, and then he also coached, was it in Florida? I want to say like Northern Florida by Tallahassee. Didn't he also play after his career? He played for, I want to say like one of the local teams.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure in regards to Laettner from all those years ago.
I'm almost certain. I'll definitely
Okay.
find out, but I think he played here. He played in Florida locally, so
Okay.
I'll have to remember that one. But again, winning a championship, it's
Hmm.
hard. You guys were able to do it back to back, even if you weren't there for the first one. To repeat again as champions, it's extremely hard. In
Hmm.
basketball, we all know that a lot of teams just try to get to the Sweet 16, yet alone to get to the NCAA, final championship game. So it had to be a tough road to climb. But I want to ask too, when did you guys believe that you were going to make not only then the Sweet 16, but also the Elite Eight, and then starting kind of get the feels that you guys thought you'd be able to at least repeat again?
Right. Yeah. Angel, that was an interesting year. It's funny. We finished 35-5 that year, and it's interesting because all these years later, I can tell you the 5 losses, right?
Right?
Much more than any of the 35 wins. Um, we ended up that year. We lost in overtime in Las Vegas to Kansas that year, who happened the following year to win the national championship with Mario Chalmers with that crew. Um, we ended up losing to Florida State at Florida State. And then after that, we won 17 straight games, number one in the country. Everybody at that point in time, they were thinking we might not lose another game. So lo and behold, we go to Vanderbilt. We play Vandy on a Saturday afternoon on CBS. And Sham Falson and Derek Byers, that combined 62 of their 82 to beat us to end the 17-game winning streak. They actually stormed the floor. That following Tuesday, we played Tennessee at Tennessee. I'll never forget that because that was the night that Coach Summit dressed up in the cheerleading outfit, God bless her soul, for the Rocky Top and got to the. Next thing we know, we're in halftime. We're down by 30 on national television. At half, we get the game within 4, end up losing by 8. Then we go to LSU, end up losing to LSU at LSU, and then we kind of had to regroup because we were kind of disjointed a little bit. And one of the things about that year was when you have the type of love, respect, admiration, those guys locked in. And I thought, I'll say this, and I'll argue with anybody. I think Al Horford's one of the 3 to 5 best leaders I've ever been around. You see it now in the NBA, what guys talk about with him in the locker room. I'll be honest with you. I do not think the Atlanta Hawks have ever been the same since Al left back in 2017 because of what he brought to the locker room during his 7 years here in Atlanta. But that leadership of that team was the reason why we were able to repeat because it was a lot of adversity going on at that point in time. And they figured out how to stay the course. We won the last 13 games in a row, and the rest was history. So, it's funny now. You kind of go back and, when you get together for reunions or every once in a while, I'll pull the ring out and show some people going to a speaking engagement or something. And you think about it, in those 2 years of those back-to-back championships, the overall record was 68-11.
Wow.
So, yeah, to win 68 games in 2 years and do it the way that it was done is something that's very special.
Yeah. Well, now we on the show here, we always talk about grab your popcorn, and when Ron and I have a conversation, usually if it's on the phone, we'll give each other 15 minutes. Never works out that way. Usually we're on the phone for about 2 hours. But we have so much fun when we speak to each other. So I would imagine a conference call with us here, it'd probably be like a 3 or 4 hour conversation because of what you had stated from the history. But again, having the ring to pull it out, like you said, it's got to be something amazing. It's a monumental feat for sure to be able to have that part of your career now, especially when you share with everyone who comes over to the BDS agency. And for those who don't know, it's a bdsagency.com. Agent for men's basketball is Coach Preston. But it's got to be adding that to your resume, and then going on to other schools like Penn State. Again, love it because I'm from Philly originally. Love Penn
Okay.
State. So I think it's absolutely fantastic you were there. Kennesaw State as well, where you were. But for all the college years that you had coach,
Mm.
minus your championship, what was the next best year or the next best school that you had in your career?
Ooh, that is a great question. I tell people this all the time. Uh, each school was very unique. When I started out at Coastal Carolina, I'll be honest with you. My coach and mentor was the one who gave me my first college job. Coach T, Coach Mack, you probably understand that as well. It's probably somebody you were connected to that gave you your first job. I never thought I was going to ever leave Conway, South Carolina. At that point in time, and I was okay with that. Because I didn't know any better. But the person who gave me the job at the time, Pete Strickland, was my assistant coach when I was a cadet at BMI. And I tell people all the time that I credit him along with others for helping me to become an all conference basketball player. Uh, he told me the truth from day one. Uh, I only played 1 year of high school ball, so I didn't really have a lot of bad habits. So what you taught me, I would pick up and learn. But he taught me how to love and appreciate the game the right way. And so I would say Coastal Carolina, just for the fact that because at that point in time I didn't know any better. But Angel, I'm going to go back and say this: of all the schools that I worked at, the one that if somebody called me back and said, "Which one would you go back to tomorrow?" I'd go back to Penn State in a heartbeat. And here's the reason why. Uh, that school, I mean, they call it Happy Valley for a reason,
Mhm.
but the fans, they're 100% all in. It's a football school. I mean, I should actually write a book on being a coach where, coached at three highly respected football schools and was able to be successful on the basketball court as well. But Penn State, it's a football school, but they also, what we did in the 3 years that I was there was at that point in time was the most wins that they had had in a 3 year span during that time. So that was a lot of fun. I tell people I got to see the business of college basketball at Notre Dame. Uh, and that's because you had a chance to. I remember when I got hired, who Bob Davie was the football coach. You see Bob Davie, you had Tyrone Willingham, George O'Leary was there for a second. Um, Gosh, who was the fourth one? So I went through four football coaches in my 6 years at Notre Dame.
Oh, wow.
So you had a chance to,
Wow.
kind of see that business side up close and personal. I tell people all to still one of the best stories I ever have at Notre Dame is, and my mom passed away back in 2019 when Coach Willingham came to my office, came to the basketball office to meet my mom. That might be one of the coolest moments on a football Friday at Notre Dame where there's a pep rally, a luncheon, all this different stuff. That man came down to the office and met my mom. And at that time, and still to this day, my best friend from high school, he spent about 15 minutes in the office. And like my mom was like, "How did you pull that off?" I said, "I didn't do anything. He came down." And the funniest thing, my high school buddy froze. He couldn't say a word. I said, "He's just another human." He's like, "You don't understand. That's Tyrone Willingham. That's the head coach, football coach at the University of Notre Dame." I said, "And it's just the title." So, but that was a great experience there. Yeah, but each stop had something very unique in regards to helping me to become a better coach. I think it's helped me to be a very good agent now. I think it's, believe it or not, I think it's helping me to be an even better basketball coach now, have an opportunity to coach varsity girls.
See, and it's good because everything comes around at least full circle, which is the most amazing part, I think, of anyone's career. You're able to make the switch over from the men to women's side. And
Mhm.
as our coach unscripted segment, as they know from the WNBA, they've been following it, extremely tightly here. And there might be
Mhm.
an expansion team coming up next season. But, it's as I think one of the tougher things is because you do make that transition. Working with men, we know there's times where and men has their diva moments too. Let's get that one out there as well. That they have their diva moments because there's some guys they feel like you don't have to coach them. Like, coach, don't tell me what to do. I'll tell you exactly what to do. I think on the women's side of the house, you have it more where it's more listening, more learning from the skills. And I could be wrong, but there's the adaptability is a lot better because the women and not taking anything away from the men either, is that the women like to at least absorb everything like a sponge. And there's a lot of guys who do so as well. But I think for the women, it's more like let's talk about what's on the board physically where you're writing down, but then let's show it on the court as well. So I think it's very fortunate for as far as for you to make that transition over to help out, and especially bringing what you have learned in your career over to help them out. And as I told you, and for those who don't know, prior to us going live here on air, that means that you will have to come back to let us know as the season progresses because we like to hear everything that's going on.
Right, and the goal is to definitely look to try to win a state championship. With this group of young ladies. But I think one of the more important things for all of you to understand, I'm probably learning more from them than they're learning from me right now because learn. I'm having to learn, different personalities, having to learn, what makes each person tick,
Right.
dealing with a new coaching staff, understanding the roles within a coaching staff, understanding what the head coach wants, and to try to think one step ahead and things of that nature. So for me, it is, believe me, it's a lot of fun, but there's a reason why my head's shaven. So you can't see the salt and pepper that's up there. So,
It might be the reason why Ron's shaving as well, right? It's not like all the experience.
The reason is I had to deal with him and the rest of the coaches, assistant coaches for so long and try to make things happen for them.
yes. And you did a great job of that, too. Great job.
Thank you.
No, Ron, you have a question?
Yeah, Lou. Hey, we
Mhm.
go way back, man. I
Yeah,
mean, maybe what, 25 years,
easily.
easily. And when I first met you, I knew you was at Coastal Carolina, but when I first met you and got to really know you, you
Mhm.
were at Notre Dame with Mike
Mhm.
Gray,
Mhm.
and we had some fantastic times. Out of the three schools or the four schools that you coached at, with the different head coaches, the style of coaching, which one did you like the best?
Um, it's now here's a great one. Billy Donovan was getting a PhD in X's and O's. I
Right.
mean, there's a reason why he's the head coach of Chicago Bulls, and he was with Oklahoma City. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's the second fastest coach to 500 wins, behind Coach Bobby Knight all time. Um, what was interesting about Coach Donovan was his attention to detail. I told somebody not too long ago. I said if I could have anything at Coach Donovan's, and people talk about the money and the success. I said I would want all his written basketball notes because he's so detailed in his preparation. You could put an encyclopedia of basketball together. And just to give you an example, I remember when I first got to Florida, he would have a folder on every team that he had ever coached against, and he had pre notes, he had post game notes. He would go back and watch film, and then he would write up another game plan for the next time he played. And he did that for every single opponent. And that's the reason why I said I would love to have all of his written notes, basketball wise. Mike Bray, who actually, believe it or not, I live here in Atlanta now. Mike Bray's an assistant with the Atlanta Hawks.
Right.
His first year in the NBA. I think Mike Bray was the best player coach you could ever ask for. Like, talking about giving guys the confidence and the freedom to play and to focus on the next shot and to have fun with it, to, live in the moment, be in the moment. Because, hey, you only got a short amount of time and then it's gone. So I thought Mike was great as a player coach. Coach DeChellis at Penn State. Coach DeChellis was the one coach that I ever coached with that he didn't play basketball. Coach DeChellis was a basketball manager, so Coach always had this edge about him about you just got to outwork everybody else, and that was kind of our mantra at Penn State. We were never. Angel, I'll tell you right now, I probably went into Philly 3 times trying to get kids out of Philly to come to State College, Pennsylvania.
Right.
They only come to State College for the state championships, and that was it. They were going back to Philly and going to Temple, LaSalle, St. Joe. Very rarely were they going to come to Penn State. But the beauty of it was we kind of took on Coach DeChellis' identity, and we ended up winning the NIT in 08-09, my first year at Penn State. I still to this day, I have no problem saying it. I think we were robbed making the NCAA tournament that year. We were at that time we were 22. We were 22-11, 10-8 in the Big Ten, and I think we were the first team to win 10 games in the Big Ten not to make the NCAA tournament. So
I call it robbery.
I'm not bitter about that. I just don't forget it. And by the way, I still know that Bob Bowlesby was the head of the committee.
I might not know who he is, but I do.
Yeah. He's retired now. He's retired from the Big 12 as a commissioner of the Big 12, but I still remember. So if I see him, I'll remind him. But
Luke, be nice now. Be nice.
No, I am being nice. But what I will say is this: that adversity brought our team together, and to be able to go to New York City, which is only about 4.5 hours away from Penn State, and to have 37 busloads of fans go to Madison Square Garden, and we literally did a whiteout at Madison Square Garden to end up beating Baylor, to end up beat Baylor to win the NIT was pretty special. Now, it's funny, you go 11 years, 11 years later, and, Scott Drew leads Baylor to a national championship.
Right.
And, I think he's done a phenomenal job there at Baylor with what he had to walk into. But I think each one of those places has something very unique to offer, outside of the fact that all 3 of those were also pretty big and well-known and pretty good money-making machines football-wise as well.
Luke, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to leadership, out of all the coaches, which one would you say that gave you the edge on being a leader that you are today?
Pete Strickland, Coach of Carolina. And I go back from the leadership standpoint was he was an absolute truth teller. And, I think we're in a day and age now to where, I'll be honest with you, with so many trainers and all this other stuff, I don't think there's enough people out there that are telling these younger people the truth of where they are now and where they need to be and what they need to do to get to where they say they want to get to. That's what I loved about Coach Strickland. He every day we talked in truth, 100%. So, and I think some, but also some of that comes back from when he coached me at VMI.
Okay.
Now, you go back and when you go to military school, like I'll tell you, I'm not a big video game guy. I've never played Call of Duty. I've never gotten into any of that stuff because I've actually had classmates lose their lives in battle. So, you know,
Yeah.
when we would go, like if I wasn't doing something basketball wise, if we were doing a field training exercise, it was life or death. So you were always preparing for that. So we always talked about you have to talk in truth, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or you hear it now, radical candor. Like when they talk about like the Blue Angels, when they get done with a mission, they all get together. They don't care what their rank is. It's like they have to talk about, all right, what were the mistakes that were made that could have cost us our lives, but it didn't, and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So that's kind of how you have to talk, especially at a military school.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Lou,
Yeah.
when it comes to recruiting,
Mm-hmm.
back to when we were doing our thing, until today, you got the NIL involved and you
Oh
got
boy.
the porter involved.
Yeah.
Kind of give your opinion to the listeners of the two different type of years.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I would say now, since 2018 with the transfer portal, and living here in Georgia, they just passed on Monday. They just actually passed the NIL for the state of Georgia for high school. Just happened to pass this week, which is very interesting. Kind of figuring out information in regards to that. But prior to 2018, it was, hey, all right, here at the University of Florida, you got back-to-back national championships, great college coach, boom, 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 right? Now it is everything back then was about playing time. Can you guarantee me playing time? Can you guarantee me a spot? And by the way, you haven't done anything necessarily to prove that you deserve that. Right. Now let's fast forward. They don't even talk about that anymore. They're like, hey, you know what? Such and such university offered me 175, right? So are you going to offer 200? So now as opposed, everything is very transactional now, right? Very
Right.
little of it is relational. And what's happened in regards to this, and I think the NCAA at the end of the day, when they decided to just open up the portal and everything, they didn't put any parameters to it. What you had was basically the Wild Wild West. And now you're trying to put toothpaste back in the tube, and it's impossible to do. So it the way that I see it as it continues to move forward is I think eventually it's going to level itself off because if you really start paying attention to NIL, and I was just reading something but prior to coming on here, I don't know if y'all saw this, University of Utah, all 85 of their scholarship football players all got 2024 Ford, I forget what kind of truck they got, right?
Good Lord.
Oh, wow.
As
No,
part
but I need one of those.
as part of the collective, at the school. So all 85 scholarship athletes all
Wow.
have access to a 2024, I think it's a Ford Bronco or whatever. And so the total of that's about $6 million, right?
Okay.
Now, here's the
Goodness.
here's the interesting part of that is they kept it fair and equitable right there. To me, is that the best way moving forward, how to continue to build a successful team? Or do you take the $6 million and put it between your 5 best athletes, just knowing you're going to have a revolving door every year? So that's where, from a NIL collective standpoint, from a coaching standpoint. Now, I just said that was just football. They didn't involve any other sport with that. Now, me being a basketball guy, I'm probably going to the collective people, and I said, well, why can't I do that for my 13 scholarship basketball players, right? The women's coach is probably going to say, why can't I do that for my 15 scholarship, female student athletes? So that's where I think this becomes a very slippery slope, across the board. I think another thing about NIL, people don't talk enough about. Everybody thinks that there's an exchange of money. Most of the time, it's just in-kind services. So those guys getting those trucks, that's just in-kind service. They're just driving the truck, right?
Right.
So I think everybody tries to put a dollar figure to it, and most of the time it's not a dollar figure to it. The third part, very few people talk about the tax implications to all this, because you're a 1099, right? And last time I checked, as a 1099, you have to pay taxes.
Yep.
You're not, right? Yep. Even if you're a
contractor.
Even if you're a W-2 employee, you still have to pay taxes. I do not hear, I hear very few people talking about the tax implications with all of this, to where are we going to eventually get to the point with NIL to where student athletes are going to become employees at a university?
Right.
From what I've been told, student athletes do not want that for 3 reasons. If you're late for practice, if you don't hold up your end of the bargain, if you don't show up for games, you don't go to class, and if you're an employee of the university, I can fire you.
That's right.
Right? Once I fire you, I don't owe you anything. So there's a lot of moving parts to all this. I think it's going to be very interesting over the course of the next couple of years to see how this goes. And the fact that now, and I brought it up earlier, that there's 30 of the 50 states right now that have passed NIL legislation for high school. Just to give you an idea, 60% of the states have passed NIL legislation for high school.
Coach, is that kind of piggyback on what you just said there when it comes to the high school? Is it too early to do NIL deals in high school? Because I mean, again, these kids are they're trying to learn the fundamentals, but or are these high schools getting to the point where they know they can benefit, I guess, from these kids?
I'm not sure it's necessarily the high schools that benefit as much as getting a quote unquote a leg up on a relationship.
Right.
With a potential top 3 to 5 pick. I'll give you a great example. Here in Atlanta, where I live in Marietta, about less than 10 minutes away, Scoot Henderson went to high school.
Right.
Right? And Scoot Henderson was the 3rd pick of the draft by Portland this past year. But Scoot left after his junior year of high school and went to G League at night for $1 million over 2 years, Ron. And I mean, he parlayed that into a 7-figure deal with Puma into becoming the 3rd pick, right? So you take that money all together, he slotted somewhere between 35 and 40 million.
He sure is, man. You guess what? He's wearing those Puma Clydes like I used to wear back in the day.
Right. So think about this. If you were able to get that relationship early on with him when he was in high school with his dad, with Chris and Crystal, right, and build that relationship. If you just do the basic 4%, right?
Right.
I mean, I mean, just let's just call it like it is. What 4% of 40 million is? I mean, what 25 to that? It's probably right about 3 million, 3.5, somewhere like that,
Good Lord.
Yep.
right?
Wow.
So that's just off of one person.
And that's not even counting the shoe deal.
No, now let's go to the whole other side. If you're the one that's in charge of his marketing and his promotion, your percentage is anywhere from 15 to 20.
Right.
That's crazy.
Goodness. That's a lot.
So that's the business side to all this.
Yeah.
And Lewis, it's just
Yeah.
like you have to be really, really good high school player to be even considered to
Yeah.
be looked at for those type of deals. You know,
Yeah.
like Tracy McGrady was back in the day, like a Kobe Bryant was, and
Right.
some
Right.
other top players. You know, the Dwight Howard, you know, just guys like that that came straight out of high school
Right.
from around the area.
Now,
But
Coach Preston, I do have a question for you.
uh,
Just in your expert opinion, how do you feel that the approach that coaches will have to take in college when it comes to coaching players, the approach that they have to take almost in a sense of catering now to their top players with the effects of the portal being an option and
mhm.
being able to enter into the portal, whereas it was difficult to transfer, and you would have to sit out, and so a lot of players maybe put up with more than what they would have liked, or if they feel like they're not being treated the way that they feel they deserve, they stayed the course because of the difficulties. But now, with it being so easy for them to be like, hey, I don't like the way that you're yelling at me, that you like to, that you feel I need to do X, Y, and Z. I don't find that to be fair. I'm going to go find somebody who's going to give me a better offer, a better chance at NIL deals, better money. Like you said, it becomes transactional. So
Right.
I'm just wondering, just in your opinion, do you feel that that changes coaching styles and the approach that coaches take as they're coaching in college?
I think it absolutely changes coaching styles, and I think that's the reason why in the last 5 years you've seen Coach K, Roy Williams, right? Jay Wright, arguably three of the five best coaches in college basketball retire. That should Jay Wright's sudden retirement to me was the eye opener that there's a problem with the transfer portal and trying to maintain, because think about it, he went to the Final Four that year.
Yep.
It wasn't like he got knocked out in the second round. He went to that may have been arguably the best coaching job he had done outside of winning those two national championships. And I would think he may have done a better job with that Final Four team, right?
Yeah, he did a great job.
But then to find out that he was going to probably lose one or two guys off of that team after you've had that type of run, like if you've made enough money and you've taken care of it the right way, at what point do you look at yourself and like, enough is enough? I started thinking about some of the more well-respected coaches, like Bob McKillop just retired from Davidson, who coached Steph Curry. I'm thinking about, I think about Tony Bennett, at Virginia. Like at some point, do you say to yourself, like, God, we won a national championship here. We've done a great job. Why do you want to keep beating your head up against the wall? Especially, think about this. What if you're at a university with an athletic administration that's not trying to help you with the collective? There is no way you're going to be able to survive.
That's right.
There's absolutely no way that you're going to be able to survive.
I think that's why Mike Wright stepped in.
Yeah. Notre Dame wasn't going to go. I mean, Notre Dame wasn't going to go and raise 25, 30, 40, 50 million dollars for a collective. They basically say the collective is the education. That I mean, that's Notre Dame's philosophy. Florida, completely different philosophy. They'll probably raise 60 or 70 million dollars. Because Jeremy Foley's philosophy was he wants to win. You know, that was his. I mean, he's no longer the AD there, Scott Strickland now, but that was coach. I mean, Jeremy Foley might have been one of the most aggressive ADs I've ever seen. But he believed in winning and winning at a high rate. And there was a lot of championships won during his time when he was AD at the University of Florida. So it comes back, Coach T, it comes back to whatever whatever the philosophy of that university is. But you better well know that you're going to have to change your coaching style, short term and long term, if you want to continue to compete for championships.
Wow.
Now, I will add this. I think some of your best coaches in college basketball right now are your mid-major coaches that are developing the talent that the Power 5 coaches are actually paying the NIL money for on the back end.
Good point.
That's a conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
That it is. But, you brought up a great point about Jay Wright because I was still home before I ended up moving down here to Tampa. And when he announced it, at the time the Sixers were going through, speaking of the Sixers, and the Sixers were going through their change. And we thought, like, okay, maybe Jay decided to retire because he's going to go be part of the Sixers staff and the brass. And that's what we thought. But I never thought about it until the way you just brought it up now because, again, great coach. He was so well loved in Philly, obviously out there in the county. I mean, everybody at university, that's what you look for. Penn State, of course, when you have the whiteout, when it comes to football games, basketball games, when it comes to Jay Wright and Villanova, I mean, you couldn't pass through there without even peeping over to university to see if you can get a glimpse of him. But wow, I never thought about it until what you just said.
I would say arguably Jay Wright's probably, if I had to say who was the best coach over the last decade, I would say Jay Wright. Jay Wright at Villanova. Just think about it. Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Ryan Archidiacono, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, all pros, right? Yep. I think the tallest one of them is 6'5".
Yeah, Mr. went there too.
Yep, you're exactly right. So, I mean, he's got like 6, 7, 8 pros, right? And it's his style. And it's funny that half of them play with the New York Knicks right now.
Yeah.
So it says a lot about how he developed a certain style of player that is able to go into the NBA and succeed in today's NBA.
And
do well.
Very well.
Coach Mack.
I'm sorry, I'm sucking it all in. This is some good stuff. I do have a question for like.
Speechless. Come on, Coach Mack. It's not like
well, no. This is like good stuff. I'm enjoying this. Really, I am. But for coaches that are like in high school who wants to get on the collegiate level, like what advice would you have for them to even get to that point with all of this going on?
Work camps, build relationships, network. I would go to college practices, especially like now that, they started, a lot of schools officially started practice for college back the last week of September.
Yeah.
So they've been going for about 10 days now. I think this is the ideal time. I think you have to continue to communicate with coaches. I am very old school. I'm going to give my age away, and I don't care. I still write handwritten notes. A handwritten note is read 86% more than a computer generated note.
Oh, that's good facts.
Handwritten notes. I promise you. Go back if you go and talk to recruits parents. They will tell you for every 10 handwritten notes, they open 9 of them.
Wow.
Handwritten, because it means you took the time and you cared enough to take time to sit down and write it, because it's a lost art today. I would tell any high school coach that. Once again, work camp, network. And by the way, when you work the camp, most of the time you're probably going to doing it for free. But, that free could end up leading to a 6-figure job down the road. If you get there early, stay late, ask questions. I will say this: coaches love talking about themselves. So what was it about your journey? I tell people all the time. Probably some of the best conversations Ron and I ever had was sitting in an airport after going to an AAU event. I remember sitting with Coach Bill Self and asking him about his journey from, where he started to, at that point in time, he was the head coach of Illinois. And the next thing I know, 2 months later, he's the head coach of Kansas.
Yeah.
So.
I can go back a little bit farther with Bill.
Huh?
I can go back a little bit farther with Bill.
Yeah, I bet you can. Oklahoma State?
When he was at Oklahoma State and he played there, and Leonard Hamilton was his boss. And then I remember the first time that I met him on the road in Jonesboro, Arkansas, at an AAU event, and he came up to me and he said, "You Ron Bristow?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Leonard Hamilton told me I needed to get in touch with you." And that was his first time on the road.
Right.
And we started from there. So we go back that far.
But those are the stories. Like for me, I worked five-star basketball camp back when I was at VMI in the summer. That was Howard Garfinkel and Will Klein. And I used to work. I would work the one in Roanoke, Virginia, because in Radford, Virginia, because I grew up. I was living at the time in Roanoke, and then I would drive to Pittsburgh and work the 4 weeks in Pittsburgh. So, and I did that for 3 summers. And then once I got done playing basketball, one thing led to another. You make a call, one call leads to another call. Next thing you know, you're interviewing and you're sitting in front of, a couple people and you're a college coach. So but it goes back to working those camps, keeping those connections, building that network. It's no different than what you're doing today. You're just doing it differently.
The Larry Brown, Green Pasillos, the Rick Pitino,
the John Calipari's.
Yeah.
the John Calipari's, right. Oh my gosh, the Hubie Browns.
Yeah, the Hubie Brown.
Yeah, still, by the way, the best clinician ever. Hubie Brown. That you talking about? Yeah, I would put him against anybody in regards to speaking at a camp. But having a chance to be around that much talent, but also at the same time watching great players. I still remember seeing Jerry Stackhouse, who's at Vanderbilt now as the head coach, watching him at basketball camp. Just so much.
Morning.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Gannon Baker.
Oh gosh, G. Baker.
And my guy that played at Duke.
Bobby Hurley.
But not only Bobby Hurley, but
Wojo.
All
Remember
of them.
Wojo? Yeah. Steve Wojciechowski, he's the only kid I ever saw dive on asphalt at five-star
Oh,
basketball camp in a game to get a loose ball. And I think Coach K offered him that day.
Good Lord.
oh my God.
And it was about a 100-degree day that day in Pittsburgh. And
Oh,
he just competed. He just competed. So, and I mean, not bad for a Baltimore kid. But yeah, yeah, Wojo was nuts. I'll just say that in a good way. He was nuts.
Goodness gracious. I
Yeah.
know this much, and Ron, we lost Ron's connection. He'll be back here momentarily, but I,
Okay.
I will say this much, Coach. I need to take a road trip up to Atlanta, have Ron meet us up there in the entire gang, and just a mic, a couch, whatever. I don't care if it's at a
Yeah.
food court, something or another, and just kick back and tell a lot of stories because there's so many names that you brought up, and it's so much history behind it that it's
Hmm.
tough
yes.
to squeeze all that stuff in one show because I mean, it just there's a lot of coaches, a lot of history, a lot of players that have obviously have done so many great things in seasons past. And it just there's not enough time. Ron, in case you missed it, I said I'm gonna have to take a road trip up there to me, you, the rest of the gang
I'm
up to Atlanta, Georgia, so we can all sit down and have a couple of mics, some headphones, and kind of kick back and tell some stories. I told you between the both of you guys, I could literally sit back and just watch the show because
Yeah.
there's so much
yes.
knowledge, so much
Me,
information.
Lou and I have some stories that we can
Oh
share with
yeah.
you guys,
Yeah.
man. That we have so much fun, and we've been in, like you said, in airports or wherever together in gyms. I used to go down to Gainesville a lot when he
Yeah.
coached and hang out at the practice because Billy Donovan and I were really close. I
Yeah.
met Billy when he got out of college, when he went to coach at the University of Kentucky. We used to
Hmm.
play ball all the time. He was the guy that gave me the name Rockin' Ronnie.
Rock and running.
We used to play with each other down.
Hey,
Pickup game.
I do have to bring up one thing, Ron. Remember when we were going through the run for the second championship, and you came up to the concierge room? Remember the war room?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we took the concierge room at the hotel and basically made it our film room, and we literally watched film for 48 hours. That's all we
Whoa.
did.
Oh
We
my goodness.
And because coach, first of all, coach couldn't sleep. So if he couldn't sleep, we couldn't sleep. And
Oh
so
my God.
we were watching film. So what coach would do when former assistants or whomever, like Coach Grant came through,
Right.
John Pelfrey came through, Ron came through, coach would sit you down for an hour and you would watch film and he would ask you what you saw. And I was just sitting there like, all right, we gotta get some sleep at some point. Some point we gotta get some sleep. And it was like we weren't sleeping. But yeah, I just wanted to know to see if Ron remembered the war room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great.
Billy D was something else, but he was a diehard basketball player. He knew his stuff.
Yes,
I remember I was
absolutely.
guarding him one time. He put a move on me. I pulled a groin. I said, "Oh, coach, why'd you do that to me?" Hey, I had so much fun. Not only with him, but with everybody.
Mm,
In Florida and Lou. So much fun with you, man. You calling me at night, or you calling me in the gym at one of our Nike's event and say, "Hey, man, can you fax me that roster? I need to have."
exactly. Exactly. Hey, oh, here's a good story. He faxed me a roster. We ended up getting Chandler Parsons out of that.
That's right.
Ended up
Oh.
getting by the way,
Nick Calathis too, huh?
yeah, we already had Nick Calathis, and Chandler Parsons was at the time he was about 6'8", thin,
Right.
really athletic, okay shooter, not great, but he had a summer to remember. He went from in the course of the spring, he was ranked 130th.
That's right.
By the end of the summer, he was 30th.
Wow.
That's right. He was
He jumped 100 spots. And
he
I
was on the Mountain team when he
remember
played for that Team
Nike
Florida.
Team Florida, Tom
Right.
Topping and Ed
Tom
Hall.
Toppin's Team Florida.
Right. And I remember I said, Ron, I need you to, bro, I need you to fax me that roster because Coach Donovan was so hard to please in regards to recruiting. If he watched a kid, you remember this, Ron? Coach D would stand under the basket.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody else was sitting. Coach Donovan would stand under the basket with his arms crossed. So he's standing under the basket, and Chandler goes for like 37, right? And I remember Coach was like, all right, I guess we're going to have to keep an eye on him. That's all he said. I guess we're going to have to keep an eye on him. It wasn't like, no, we're going to offer this guy because at the same time, Gene Cross at Notre Dame, who Gene replaced me when I left Notre Dame to go to Florida, was always beside Lewis. Are you guys going to take Chandler Parsons or what? I said, dude, I don't know if we're going to take him or not. Hey, man, just tell me, is you going to take Chandler Parsons or not? I said, from what I'm hearing, Leonard's going to be the one that's going to get him at Florida State, right? Because Leonard was all over. And one thing led to another, and Coach finally pulled the trigger, and he was like, okay, because Nick Kalathis was there. They were high school teammates.
His friends.
Yep. So, man, great story. It's a great story right there.
I can tell you some Chandler Parsons and Nick Kalathis stories and Team Florida and all that stuff, how it went down, man.
Yeah.
It's just it was just amazing. And to have you in the mix during the time and to have Billy in the mix, because like you said, Billy used to get up under the gold, and then all these other coaches started doing it.
Yeah.
Later on.
They would get mad too. They would get so mad. They were like, we know y'all doing something on the inside. I said, all he's doing is standing there with his arms crossed. It's like
Gene Cross, man, he used to call me all the time too, trying to find out what the deal was. I was like, Gene, I don't know what they doing over there.
yeah. And then you know how Leonard was. Leonard didn't say anything to you, right? Leonard would just be sitting over there in the chair. He's just like looking around like, all right, who's trying to pull the trigger here? Because I'm gonna try to beat somebody to get this kid. But yeah, those are great times.
Leonard would tell me, he would set me down and he'd look at me, because I've been knowing Leonard ever since I was like 18 years old.
Right.
And Leonard would look at me and say, Briscoe, tell me what's going on. Just like that. like he's my daddy or something.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Give me the story. I know you know the story.
Yeah.
I said, no, I don't know nothing. Look, don't tell me that. I know you know the story.
But you know, I'll say this. I think Coach Hamilton is like part of that last of the OGs in my mind, of the ones that came up during that time to where you really had to dig in with 2 feet. Because a lot of times you were the only black assistant on staff and you were only there for one reason, and everybody knew the reason you were there. And to be able to prove himself and to have such great longevity the way that he has had over the years, I think says a lot about him, not only as a person, but him as a coach as well.
Oh, exactly. Leonard is a guy who I met his first, not his first coaching job, but his second assistant coaching job, leaving Austin P, where he had the great Fly Williams that he recruited. He came to the University of Kentucky, and I was just getting out of high school, and Jack Givens and James Lee were guys that Leonard came to recruit. And as a matter of fact, the guy who was the assistant coach there was my college coach who left Kentucky and went down to South Louisiana. So that's how that all connected. And I became good friends with Leonard during that period because he was recruiting me. But Truman Clayton was the guy who took my place at Kentucky.
Oh, wow. About that.
He said, well, Coach Hatfield's going to South Louisiana, but we're going for Truman Clayton. I said, okay, I'll see y'all later.
Good. So I would imagine a show between Ron, Coach Preston, and then Coach Donovan. That you're talking about. See, that's where Coach and myself would just have to sit back and enjoy the show because at that point, all
Yes.
the stories between the three of you that will end up being shared would be absolutely crazy.
I would be the moderator and just ask questions and let Ron and Coach Donovan go back and forth.
Oh wow.
I would let those two go back and forth because I
We
know
used to have some fun,
they
man.
would have some great stories of because I was only with Coach Donovan for 2 years, but Coach Donovan was in the SEC for what
Oh,
25?
yeah, he was
Oh
there a long time.
no. He was there for 20, 19 or 20. But what he saw over the course of that 20 years, when he took over as head coach of Florida until he left Florida to go to Oklahoma City,
Yeah,
it would be well worth having a conversation just to see how much he saw the SEC change from a football conference to a basketball. And he was a huge part of that.
yeah, he was so was.
And if you kind of even look at it today, I arguably say that the SEC might be the second or third best overall conference in basketball. Might be first. I mean, 2 years ago, I thought it was first.
I like to say first.
Yeah, I mean, just for talent, pros, coaching, I would put the SEC up against anybody right now.
And Lou, you talk about Florida and their facilities back before you came. When
Mhm.
I used to go down there and with John Pelfrey,
Yeah.
Anthony Grant, and all those guys before you got there, their
Uh-huh.
facilities wasn't anything like they are today. As a matter of fact, they used to have a little practice facility where they used to blow up this big old,
Yeah.
like the Minnesota Vikings would blow up this big old balloon and they
Yeah.
would practice in it. Well, that's what they had at Florida
The
when they
O
wanted.
Dome. The O
When they wanted,
Dome.
yeah,
The O Dome.
yeah, the old
Yeah.
dome. So
But
that's what they had. Now
yeah.
go down there, whew, it's
Yeah.
plush.
State of the art. State of the art
Sure.
across the board. But you know what, Ron? That's what winning does. That's what winning does. Winning,
Exactly.
it's interesting because when they built the practice facility, I think at the time when I got there, it was the first practice facility where the men and women, we had the exact same practice facility.
Right.
So you walked into the facility and you went to the left and you went down a hallway and the men's gym was on the left and the women's gym was on the right, and it was exactly the same. And I had never seen that before.
The same way as Kentucky. Kentucky has the same setup.
Yeah. So it was very unique at that point in time. And I think Carolyn Peck was the head coach at that point in time when I first got to Florida.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was the head coach, and then Amanda Butler ended up replacing her, who's at Clemson now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
For those who either are just joining us, you've been tuning in for the past hour. This is how quick the hour went by tonight, as we had Coach Preston and Ron Briscoe going back and forth with telling some great stories here with Coach Preston with the BDS Agency. You guys can visit the bdsagency.com. Again, former championship coach, and we've been having a great time with you, Coach. And I again appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. So if you're listening on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, we do appreciate it here nationally. Of course, overseas, as we're picking up a lot of steam overseas. We can't thank you guys enough for doing so. Of course, over on AMP Radio, right here on broadstsouth.com and over on YouTube. So we thank you for watching and listening in on the show. Listen, we could definitely go on forever when it comes to a lot of these stories because it's always nostalgia is one of those things that for those who enjoy the game and for those especially who love to hear history behind the game, it's always fun because you don't get to hear it as often anymore. And especially as times are
Mhm.
changing, we hear a lot more negative stuff than we do, positive things, which is a big thing. And kind of like switching gears because I got one announcement I do want to make other than obviously our call-in line that's now available. But Coach, I'd like to get your perspective and with coaching coach as well. James Harden, who's become quite the character, to put it in the most polite terms, but decided he wants to show up for practice, but will not participate in practice and is still looking to be traded. So I would love to get your comment first before getting it from both coaches, but it's creating quite the chaos, and it's not going to be fun for him when the Philly faithful get to see him at the first game just sitting on the bench.
Uh,
Hmm.
you knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's not like he's ever changed his spots.
Right.
Lepers don't change, but and Daryl Morey has had a way to where he thinks in his mind. I mean, I'm not a big analytics person, so I'm a little bit old school now. I'm not as much into analytics as a lot of these other guys. I just think it's very hard to win a championship with five guards. I'm just, you know, now people can come back and say, well, Golden State did it. Well, Golden State has a different lineup, you know. But if you take away Golden State's four championships, all the other championships in the last 8 years have been won in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But people don't talk about that because everybody wants to mimic what Golden State does. When you look at Harden has great regular season numbers, but they've never translated to the playoffs.
Nope.
So why would I continue to go down the same path when I know that it's going to end up being the same result? And to me, what you've done in essence is kind of shown, arguably, depending on who you talk to, people think Embiid might be overall one of the, if not the best player or the second best. That's a matter of opinion. But he sees this and he's trying to figure out, all right, is it worth me keeping my time here and trying to go somewhere? Because his clock is ticking on a championship too now. And he hasn't been the healthiest of players in the NBA over the course of the last decade. So you got to take all of that into account. At the end of the day, Harden's going to be moved. Let's just call it like it is.
Mm-hmm.
It'll all depend on, will they do it by the trade deadline or will they do it next off season? But once again, if you do it next off season, you've wasted another year.
Mm-hmm.
Coach,
Well, I have to agree with Coach Preston. A leopard doesn't change their spots. It's one of my favorite sayings that I love to use. Because, like I said, you knew what you were getting, and at the same time, like Harden is still a competitive player. He's still a contender. I mean, he led the NBA in assists last year with 11 assists per game, and not only that, but he also shot almost 40%, his career best from the 3-point line. So, I mean, he's still putting up good numbers, but in terms of how the team camaraderie becomes affected when you are upset with management and you take out your frustrations by not showing up. I mean, what message does it send to your teammates? And how do you expect that chemistry to come together when it's time to actually play if you're unable to leave? I do think that he will end up leaving, but I think it definitely comes down to a matter of what is that going to look like and how is that going to affect the start of their season now? If I'm on your team and you're taking this out on us, like we're still a team. It's your job still, and it's your job to still show up until it's no longer your job anymore. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Harden expected something long term with Philly, and Philly wasn't. They weren't willing to give up and have to put their franchise in that position in order to keep him. So, I mean, it's just the ugly basketball, the business side of basketball. But, from a team perspective, I'm curious to see what the response will be from his teammates.
You want to know what's going to be fun for me is watching Doc Rivers commentate a 76ers game.
That's good.
Yeah, well, get the popcorn for that one because that's going to be more than interesting on that one. Because again, everybody wanted Doc out of there. Okay, I will say as a
Mm.
fan that I personally did not want Coach Rivers to be gone. That's just me personally. I think there was a lot more going on behind the scenes, and basically he became the fall guy. That's just
Hmm.
me looking from the outside. At least
Yeah.
that's the way I felt. So, you know, people keep saying, well, he's past his time, he's past his prime, so on and so forth. I don't think so. I just think the Sixers weren't looking at the entire full picture, and they were going with the now moment. And obviously, that now moment didn't pay because last year, and that I'm still angry about because both Embiid and Harden gave up the way I see it. That's just my opinion. I'll be here all night. Coach Mack.
I just really want him to stop being such a drama king. I mean, it's ridiculous that you're such a talented player, but yet your reputation, your actions is being preceded by, or shall I say, overshadowing your skill. So it's like, it's just a matter of time when nobody's gonna want to fool with you. And then you're gonna be like some of the other players, like the White and so on. Everybody's mostly going overseas now. So it's like, what do you really want? Where do you really want to be? And I just want you to play. Can you show up and play? Just real simple. Can we get you to do that and win? Like, can you do your job, please?
that
And
That's all I got to say
I
about that.
Coach Mack, I'm gonna piggyback on something because you said when, right?
Win, win.
No, you're talking about like winning, like you want to see Harden win. I'm gonna go
Yes.
back and I'm gonna go back and say once he got the money, have you ever seen the motivation for him to win?
No.
No.
So that's why I never put win with him. He can go get shots. He can go get buckets. He can go score. I've never seen him as a quote unquote winner or win
Yeah.
or lead somebody to win.
Hmm.
And therein is, as we were talking earlier, what is the motivation once you have it all?
Hmm.
When you don't have to worry about the economic side and things of that. Like, what is the motivation now for me to go get in the gym and say, all right, I want to be great,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm not just talking about him. There's probably 90% of the guys in the league
right.
that are like that. It's less than 10% that are still getting up every day after they've signed that big deal, and saying, all right, I want to go be the best.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That brings back to a topic that T, I think, brought up that we've been floating around in our group chat about those who want less money and win championships versus those who want more money and not win anything at all. So it's
Yeah,
almost like, he truly fits that category. But
yeah,
you have so much to offer, and it's like, why?
yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, that's
It,
my spiel.
no, it is a very interesting conversation. The difference. What's the difference between good and great? I've always said the 6 inches in between your ears. But that is a you, that is a
Mm-hmm.
you and you conversation.
Yes.
It cannot be had with anybody else.
Yep.
And I mean, you see it here in Atlanta right now with Trey Young.
Hmm.
And everybody's like, well, he's
Mm-hmm.
being treated unfairly or he's been this. I said, look, what has he done besides one Eastern Conference final?
Shoot
Right?
long three pointers.
I said the last 2 years they finished 42 and 40 and 41 and 41. So when you start looking at those numbers and like you start saying, well, why am I not here? Why am I not here? Why am I not here? I said, no, you sometimes got to prove it. Steph Curry doesn't need to prove it. He's proven it.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson doesn't need to prove it. He's proven it. Those, the next wave of guys who need to prove themselves, are they willing to step up and be ready to prove themselves? Like I love De'Aaron Fox. Sacramento.
Mhm.
Shea Gilgis Alexander, I can watch him play all day, every day. Oklahoma City. I had a chance. I watched the World Championships. To watch, to take and watch guys play. To get a better feel. Uh, and I keep going back to that. Like everybody's like, well, yeah, we're going to show up and kind of. Well, I want to be on the team for 2024 in Paris. Do you think you deserve the right to be one of the 12 to 14? I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure. Me personally, I would say no. And, but once again, that's where Grant Hill, heading up USA basketball, Steve Kerr, the staff, and all of that. I mean, LeBron and Kevin Durant and Steph and those guys are going to make one last run at it. We all know that. But who's
Yeah.
going to be the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th guy? Those guys are going to have a huge say in that. Huge.
Mm.
It's true. It's so true. But
Yeah.
I do want to bring up because we've got about 15, maybe 14 minutes left here to show because this part of segment, which is always fun, the coach unscripted. This is the time we're grabbing our popcorn because this is where the coaches get to fill us in when it comes to the WNBA, and we already know who's going to the finals, and then the games start on Sunday. So, starting off with Coach Johnson, would you believe that once again we will see repeat champions, or are we crowning a new champ?
Ooh, Angel, we might have to circle back to that decision after I can see the first game because it's a lot riding on it for both teams. This will be the Aces. They've made the finals appearance the past 3 or 4 years. They're the defending champions, and I feel like there's a chip on the shoulder for Asia after she felt like she was gypped of the MVP title. She also set history and joined Lisa Leslie as one of the first, as her and Lisa Leslie now the only players to record 25, 10, and 3 in points, rebounds, and blocks in a 5-game playoff series. So, she's been playing amazing basketball. She did struggle in that last game against Dallas.
Mhm.
However, how many games like that is she truly going to have? I think she's going to be a big problem for the Liberty. But on the flip side of that, you have the Liberty, who are fully loaded offensively, but I don't know if their chemistry is fully there to get them through a 5-game series against the Aces. Um,
Hmm.
they have the MVP on the team. Not only that, I mean, there's 5 number 1 draft picks playing in the final series, so it's going to be good quality
Mhm.
basketball. But I think it's really going to boil down to who is going to be the X factor for either team. We know what Chelsea Gray is going to do. We know what Asia is going to bring to the table. We know what Courtney Vandersloot, Brianna Stewart, we know what they're bringing. Sabrina Nesco, we know what they're bringing. But who is going to be the X factor and step up and make a difference for the team? So I don't know. Because of the my uneasiness with the Liberty, I want to go with the Aces, but also the Liberty are one of the original WNBA teams that they're the only ones who don't have a championship.
Hmm.
So that is a huge driving factor, I think, that they can use to fuel them going into this final series.
All right, Coach Mack.
Good points. I'm still sticking with my aces. So I also said it was going to be between the Aces and the Liberty, and here we
Mhm.
are. So yeah, I'm still sticking with my Aces. If I had to base it off of stats, and this is just based off of stats for playoffs. So you got Aces, they're averaging about 86.2 points per game, and then you have the Liberty, so they're 84.3. So the game is going to be really, really close. But the thing about the Liberty, once again, they're iffy. They may or may not show up. Do I think they're going to have a better performance than early on in the playoff? Yes, but the question is, can they last? And so, you got players like Brianna Stewart and the rest of them. They're maxing at 40 minutes. And I think the key factor to this is what the bench is going to bring because, this is going to be a very physical game, hands
Mm.
down. Like that's no question. So what can your bench contribute to help, sustain this? And again, you're looking at aces, they're averaging 86 rebounds. They're probably about the same. Aces 39, Liberty 38. But what's interesting to me was that their turnover ratio was the same. So they were both like 13.2 turnover. Now, the thing about the Aces, they capitalize off of that. So, we're getting there, we're going. The question is, will the Liberty be able to keep up with it? Because as we all know, that's their bread and butter. They love to run. They run the floor well. I love the way Asia runs the floor. Like she's just,
Mm.
I mean, for her to be her size, the speed, I mean, she can play anywhere around the perimeter. I mean, what your mom is here. Hey mom. I mean, so it's like, you know, it's gonna be a great matchup. It really is. I think Vandersloot, in my opinion, she's gonna struggle. And I say that based off of how she was guarding Tiffany when they played her. As we all saw, Tiffany told her, "You can't guard me." She said that multiple times during the game. So for a player like Chelsea, who's in my opinion is a little bit more skilled,
Hmm.
can Vandersloot can she guard that? So I mean, the matchup is going to be really good. I can't wait to see it. I do think it's going to be a close game, but I'm still sticking with the Aces.
Yeah.
Lou, you see what I have to deal with, man? They
Yeah.
they bring, they play the game. They
Yeah.
bring it. So I just sit back, listen to it, because their evaluation, their opinion is spot on.
I go back. I always go back. First two stats I always look at is transition, right? I look at turnovers and how you capitalize off of turnovers. I think at the end of the day, I just think the Aces are just so athletically above from a talent perspective. If they make this a get up and down the floor type of, I think they'll end the series in four.
Hmm.
That's just me.
Now,
So,
Will they split the season 2-2.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like somebody's coming in,
Hmm.
from the regular season and with, they win an even
Hmm.
split. So
Yeah.
that's why I say it's going to be interesting to see what is that going to look like over a 5-game series. And not only that, but when they played against each other 4 times in the month of August, I know one of those games was, I believe, for like the Commissioner's Cup or something like that.
Right.
The game didn't count. But the Aces lost
Hmm.
by almost 30
Yeah.
to Liberty. And so, you do have to take that into account. It would be nice to go back and look to see who played, who didn't, how many minutes, if it was a game that didn't count, what was the level of effort there to actually win. But
Hmm.
off the regular season with the 2-2 split, it'll be interesting to see how they match up. I do feel like the Liberty will struggle defensively. And Chelsea Gray and Courtney Vandersloot, I mean, that's an unfair matchup from point guard to point guard. Chelsea Gray is your a bigger size point guard. I mean, I played against Chelsea Gray
Hmm.
in high school during a travel ball tournament, and she's not a small guy. So whereas
Hmm.
Courtney doesn't have that height advantage
Yeah.
on her side. So it'll be interesting. I don't know if I could just go ahead and outright say the Aces, but I do have to, like, in four. I think it can go to a potential to go to five, but
Yeah.
I am leaning on the side of the Aces.
All right. Well, we had I would say earlier on, the comment of the night because Brandon was watching from work, but then sliding into the DMs real quick before the end of the show is Mama Davis, who comes flying on in there. Let us know that she's here. Thank you guys for coming back. We do appreciate it. And Mr. Johnson as well, because he had laughed as as Mama Davis came flying in there. We do appreciate it. And I want to say something here as I waited till the end of the show. And again, I can't thank Coach Preston enough for coming on here because it's been such a fantastic show. And it went by like this. It was so much fun. And we do appreciate it. But there's times when you have to believe in people as much as they believe in you. I've been fortunate when I came from Philly and came down here to Tampa to start this network 3 years ago. And it's been a hustle, it's been a grind. It's 7 days a week. These guys are starting to know it. I think I sent out a picture to the group over the weekend that I have 3 monitors that I work with, and then the one big one in front of me. And I was watching 3 games simultaneously as I had work in front of me. But all that grind, all that hustle comes for a purpose and for a reason. Tony Bruno, who has been on ESPN, Fox, CBS, he's been on radio for many years. When he left from Philly, he moved down here to Florida. And Tony and I have been friends when he was back in Philly on radio in South Philly. And a lot of people misunderstand a lot from what Tony does. Tony has a huge heart. Some things that come out of his mouth may not come out the right way, but Tony has always spoken from the heart, and he always says what's on his mind. While he was here, obviously with Sirius XM, they had let him go for a comment that he had made, and then he was off air for the longest. He's been on No Filter Network for the last about year and a half, and then I welcome them to come over to the sports radio side. This is where hopefully I don't get choked up, but in the process of all that work, people recognize the hard work and the grind you put in. Tony and Miss Robin had dropped some news to me just less than about 24, 48 hours ago, where 365 Media is a new company that's going to be coming around, and they're putting together a slew of talent to make the network run. Now, here on the sports radio side, the internet radio is where a lot of things are going, and I'm fortunate to be going on with the Bruno Sports Nation. The Broad Street South Network will be in collaboration with 365 Media. I will be following Tony Bruno, which is a humongous responsibility and a big honor to be going in after him. Tony will be on from 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. Broad Street South as a network, Sports Radio station, Sports Radio 102.9 as a station will be on from 6 to 8, Monday through Friday, which means that the grind and the hustle is real. And I want to tell people, no matter how old you think you may be, it is never too old to continue pursuing your dreams. And so at the age of 53, I'm beyond honored to be going after Tony, to growing the network now by leaps and bounds. Going Monday through Friday is going to be a task because everybody knows my day starts at 3:30 in the morning. By the time I get home from work, most of the time it's 4 o'clock. So now I literally will have to run into the studio, get things going, and make sure to put a good quality show together, which then leads into the Bleed Over show on Wednesday nights, because obviously we run from 8 to 9:30. But the gang here will probably end up popping in at least about a half hour before I go off air, so we can talk a little bit and give everybody kind of a preview of what's going to happen here from 8 to 9. So Wednesday nights will be the longest night, but I'm deeply honored by Tony Bruno, by the Bruno Sports Nation, for going live Monday through Friday from 6 to 8. And I don't know exactly what to say. A couple of days ago, I honestly, I choked up, and I even sent T a message where it's humbling. It's humbling, and it's good to know that when you put in a lot of hard work, it ends up paying off. And I'm forever thankful. So I wanted to share that with everybody because it just makes the network bigger. There's more avenues now for more listening ears, and it's a humongous honor. So I feel honored with Coach Preston being on here tonight and with the rest of the gang, and just, I don't know. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic. Sorry if I'm running on a little bit. And Mama Davis, thank you. I appreciate it, because it's definitely been a grind. It's 7 days a week. My beautiful fiance, I feel bad for, because it's 3 weekends in a row. It's been nothing but hustling in here, trying to get things done. And this weekend is her weekend because we're going to celebrate. So I thank everyone who subscribes. I thank to everyone who has believed. I appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. 53 is a new 30-ish. And this might feel 53, but the rest of it is making out pretty good. But I'm forever grateful, and I can't thank everybody enough.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congrats, Angel.
Yes.
Thank you.
God is good, bro.
Yeah, well deserved.
Yes.
It's going to be the crazy thing. It's going to be like zero sleep time, because then it's prep time for the next show. And like I was telling T, then you also have the BSL, the TBL season on top of that. And I'm usually on location for the draft combine. So it's going to be super interesting. But with that being said, Coach, you are welcome back because we're going to keep up with what you're doing this season. So you have to be back.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
For the Coach and Coach Unscripted segment, because that to me, that's the best part of me on the show, because I get to hear these two ladies throw it down like it's nothing. This is where Ron and I get to sit back, literally grab the popcorn and just keep it running. So, Coach Preston, thank you once again.
They are terrific, man.
They are. They absolutely are. It's the best part. It's the best part of the evening. I'll say it over and over again because it's the honest to God's truth that it is the best part of the evening, because it's facts. There's nothing I don't want, and I'm pulling something out from the air. No, it's absolute facts that you'll hear from both of our ladies here. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. Again, thank you to my fiance who's put up with a whole bunch. She knows that when I'm on location somewhere, this brain doesn't stop, and it's kind of hard. But Coach Preston, I mean what I say. I'm going to take a trip up there. Hopefully all of us can get together, because that would be so much fun for a weekend. Just sitting back and telling those stories, especially with Ron. He knows it. I'm more like Ron, I'm going to call you tomorrow, and you already know it's going to be more than just a 5-minute conversation. So I'm just giving you a heads up.
It's always this with everybody I know.
But it's always a good time. But thank you to everyone who tuned in. Again, appreciate it on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, over on AMP Radio, of course, right here on broadstsouth.com, and over on YouTube page. And with all of that being said, thank you once again to everyone. We can't wait to do it again next week. And if you guys want to tune in, tomorrow night we will have another show at 7 p.m. as we'll get some NFL action in. And Ms. Davis, thank you so much. Good night, family. Good night to everyone.
Good night.
And we'll see everybody next week.